Hi everyone, welcome to my channel, Tutorlini Test Prep. Today we'll be going over official guide number 1, Algebra. This video will cover the Algebra section of the official digital SAT study guide, a preparation book made by College Board. Please support the book by purchasing your own copy using the link in the description. I recommend you complete the questions before watching this video. You can follow along beginning on page 208 in your own copy of the 2023 edition. Let's get started. Okay, so the first question is talking to us. We're starting with 783 miles of paved roads. So we're going to start with 783. And we're building new paved roads. So we're going to do plus 8 miles each year. So we're going to do 8 times the number of years that pass. So it's worded a little confusing, but from 2030 to 2014, that is 16 years that have passed. We can just use subtraction to figure that out. So we're going to do 783 plus 8 times 16, and that gives us 911 miles of paved road. Great, let's look at the next one. Okay, so same kind of thing. It wants us to find a function for it this time, though. So what I always like to do is I like to make like a table. So the x variable is n, and the y variable is f. And it says n is the years after 2014. Okay, so this first sentence is a data point. So that's 0 years after 2014. 2014 minus 2014 is 0. And the number of miles, f, is 783. And starting in 2015, they are building 8 miles of new road each year. Okay, so that sounds like our slope. So our slope should be positive 8. So if we follow y equals mx plus b, b is our y-intercept, the y value when x is 0. Oh, so we have x is 0 or n is 0. So this guy is our y coordinate of our y-intercept, our b. So hopefully it should be something like this. M is 8. So it should be 8n plus 783. And I'm not seeing that as an option. Maybe I made a mistake. Okay, yeah. The answer is C. I looked, and it seems like this is just a typo. I think this is supposed to say 783. So we'll use this function if we need it in the future. Great, let's keep going. All right, so same context. And it wants us to have at least 1,000 miles of paved road. So f of n, which is the number of miles of paved road, should be at least, so greater than or equal to 1,000. And the function we came up with was 8n plus 783. And we can now solve this inequality. So the first thing I'm going to do is subtract 1,000 from both sides, or subtract 783 from both sides. So that gives me 8n is greater than or equal to 217. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 8. And I get n is greater than or equal to 27.125. So it sounds like, from the way this question is phrased, that n kind of has to be a whole number. This is like done after a full year, the roads are put into use. So the very first value that is greater than or equal to 27.125, whole number, is 28. So that might feel counterintuitive. Lots of people, they would round and they would put 27. But if you write 27 is greater than or equal to 27.125, you see that doesn't make any sense. 27 is not greater than or equal to 27.125. So you're not rounding. You're thinking, what's the first value that satisfies this inequality? So always check to make sure that, if you're on the fence between 27 or 28, that you plug it in to make sure it actually satisfies the inequality. Okay, so it's got to be 28 years. So we're going to do 2014. It's years since 2014. So we're going to do 2014 plus 28. And that gives us 2042, which is the answer. So that is right. We could have done some of these questions with Desmos. I don't know if it really, helps that much, but let's just look at this one really quick. So let's say I had 8x plus 783 is greater than or equal to 1,000. And you see the very first value is 27 and then 27.125, but we're doing years, so it's like whole number of years. So the first one to the right of that, that's a whole number, is 28. Great. Okay, let's come back over here. Let's move on to question 4. Okay, Miguel charges $50 for the first 2 hours and $20 per hour after the first 2 hours. Okay, so it kind of sounds like after 2 hours, he's doing $50. So, and then after that, $20 per hour. So that's your slope. So the slope is 20, and it needs to go through the point 2 comma 50. So why don't we use point slope? Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. There's other ways to do this, but so we're going to do where we call this guy x1 and y1. So we'll do y minus 50 equals 20 times x minus 2. Hopefully this works. We distribute. We get 20x. 20 times negative 2 is minus 40. And I'm going to add 50 to both sides. And we should get 20x. Negative 40 plus 50 is plus 10. So let's see. That is answer choice B, 20x plus 10, which is correct. There's definitely ways to do this on Desmos, but you see, it wouldn't have saved that much time. And regardless, probably the fastest way to do this one, they all have a slope of 20, right? So probably the fastest way to do this one is just start guessing and checking and plugging in 2 comma 50 into all these and see if it gives you a true statement. Right? If you plug in 2 into A, you get 40, not 50. But if you plug in 2 into B, you get 50. And if you plug 2 into the other ones, you don't get 50. So that would have been a really quick way to do it, is to just guess and check. Great, let's keep going. All right. It says the cost to build a certain one-story home in Stillwater is $142,000. And it says the cost g of x to build a one-story home. And it says in dollars. It doesn't say in thousands of dollars. So it's basically just telling you that g is equal to 142,000. That's all that's telling you. So let's plug that in. 142,000 equals 110x plus 10,000. And we'll subtract 10,000 from both sides. That's 132,000 equals 110x. And we're going to divide both sides by 110. And we should get x is 1200. You can absolutely solve this equation on Desmos. You just type it in. Could also just type in the original equation and then type y equals 142,000 and see the intersection. 1200 is correct, and always just check, is what you just solved for what they're asking you? So x square feet, and they want the planned area in square feet. Okay, so we did a good job. We don't need to like change the units or something. There's no extra step at the end. Great, looks good. 1200 is right. Okay, the sum of the prices of the plants and the briefcase before sales tax was $130. There was no sales tax on the pants and a 9% sales tax on the briefcase. Okay, so first things first, we've got some percent change going on here. So we're going to do like 1 plus or minus r, or how I like to write it, 1 plus or minus percent over 100. And sales tax is an increase on your bill, so we need to do an increase for that multiplier. So let's just go and quickly on our calculator figure out a 9% increase multiplier. So 1 plus 9 divided by 100. That gives me 1.09. So that's going to be important. So we should write that down. So the percent multiplier is 1.09 for that sales tax. Okay, so the sum of the pants and the briefcase before sales tax was 130. And then there was no sales tax on the pants. So pants plus so we're going to do the percent multiplier times the original price. So the original price of the briefcase we can call B, like I already have. So we could call this 1.09B equals 136.75. And I don't know. We're trying to find now at this point. Once you have this, please type this into Desmos. There's no reason to do this by hand. But just for the sake of it, let's just for the sake of practice, we want to find the price of the pants. So why don't I do substitution? You can do elimination as well, but why don't I do substitution? So I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to get B by itself. So if I subtract P from both sides, I get B equals 130 minus P. Now I'm going to plug that in for B. So I get P plus 1.09. And then instead of B, I'm going to write 130 minus P. And we can distribute. That gives us 1 minus 1.09. So that's negative 0.09p. 1.09 times 30 is 32.7. I feel like I must have did something wrong here. Won't this give me a negative answer? Let me see real quick. Okay, yeah, just made a tiny mistake plugging stuff into my calculator. That's not 32.7. That's 141.7. So let's put that. And now I can subtract 141.7 from both sides. Let's see what we get. Negative 4.95. Now I'm going to divide both sides by negative 0.09. and I get P equals 55, which seems like the answer. So that looks good. Again, once we got to this point, we are not going to do this by hand, so takes way too long. So let's go over to Desmos. Just make sure you type in, instead of the letters that you used for the word problem, like I used P and B, make sure you use X and Y. So X plus Y equals 130, and then X plus 1.09B equals 136.75. I can't see it, so I'm going to zoom out. And seems like it crosses somewhere over here. Let's click on it. And it says X is 55, so X is P. That's the first thing. And then Y is the briefcase, so the briefcase would be $75. Great, very good. Let's get rid of this. Let's come back over here. Okay, he wants to jog and ride his bike at least 9 miles. Okay, so that tells me that the miles he's riding his bike, J, and the mile he's jogging, J, and the mile he's riding his bike, B, those added together should give me at least, as we were kind of talking about before, means greater than or equal to, and at least 9 miles. So that should be one of the equations. And right away, C and B are looking wrong because they do not have that second inequality correct. So already we kind of already have a 50-50 chance of getting it right. Okay, so now it says in no more than 1 hour. Okay, so it's probably important that we understand distance equals rate times time. If we get time by itself, we divide both sides by r, so t is equal to d divided by r. So the time biking or time jogging would be the distance jogging, which is j, divided by the rate jogging, which is 6 miles per hour, and then plus the distance biking, which is b, divided by the rate biking, which is 12 miles per hour, no more than, so that means less than or equal to 1 hour. And I would always check, you don't want to like get messed up. Always make sure these units match. So we have hour, hour, and hour. You could see maybe it would say 60 minutes at the end, and that could mess you up and you'd have to adjust something. So just make sure you pay close attention to the units. I noticed at the beginning that they all agree, so I'm not worried about that, but another problem might do that. Okay, so it's looking like answer choice A is right. So, again, I think probably the big takeaway from this question is that you understand D equals RT and how to get each of those R and T by themselves. You just divide. Great, let's keep going. Okay, so I really don't like these fractions. But I realize I have to like distribute over here. So why don't we do that first? So 3 times a half is 3/2 minus 3x equals 3/5 plus 15x. And now before I go any further, I'm going to clear the denominators. So to do that, we're going to find the LCD. So the LCD or LCM, there's an LCM function on Desmos as well. The LCM of 2 and 5 is 10. So we're going to multiply the whole equation by 10. So 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. 10 times negative 3x is negative 30x. 10 divided by 5 is 2, 2 times 3 is 6, and 10 times 15x is 150x. I'm going to add 30x to both sides. And I'm also going to subtract 6 from both sides. Get the x's to one side and get the numbers to one side. So we get 150 plus 30, that's 180x. And now 15 minus 6 is 9. So now I'm going to divide both sides by 180. Okay, and we divide both sides by 180, and we can just do this on a calculator, and I get x equals 0.05. You can also put probably the fraction form of that, which is 1/20th. I mean, there's no reason not to. It'll just do the fraction form for you. And so yeah, understanding how to clear denominators is like super important on the exam. However, on the actual test, I would not solve this question this way. So let's go over here. So we just type it in exactly as written. Oops, messed up here. Great. Okay, let's see here. And it tells me the answer is 0.05. So yeah, definitely do not, when you're practicing, you should do this by hand because you're probably going to get harder questions where you need to clear denominators. So knowing how to do this is important. But on the actual test, don't waste more time on this question. You should absolutely just type this in. Great, let's come back over here. Okay, similar kind of deal. Why don't I just distribute first? So negative 6x minus 4.8 equals negative 9x. I don't know what 2.4 times negative 3 is. Let's see. Negative 7.2. Now, do you see how each of these goes to the tenths? So we can clear the denominators by multiplying by 10, but I'll do you one better. 8 and 2 are even. So 0.8 is really 4/5, and 0.2 is really 1/5. So we can actually clear these decimals by multiplying this whole thing by 5. That's actually the LCD. It's hard to tell because it's a decimal. Not a big deal. If you can't see that, just multiply by 10. It doesn't matter. Okay, so I get negative 30x. What's 5 times negative 4.8? Minus 24 equals negative 45x minus 7.2 times 5, 36. Great, looks awesome. This question is now a lot more approachable. Okay, so we'll add 45x to both sides, get the x's to one side. And then we'll also add 24 to one side, to both sides. So we get 15x equals negative 36 plus 24, negative 12. We divide both sides by 15, and we get x equals negative 0.8, which is also simplifies to negative 4/5. So I think either of those would be fine. And once again, not going to harp on it if it just saves a little bit of time, but if it saves a lot of time, we really should go through and solve it on Desmos as well, just so that when we see one like this on test day, we're prepared. All right, let's zoom in, click on it. Negative 0.8. All right, great. Seems like we did a good job. And then, of course, if you want to simplify it, if you need a fraction or something, just come over here and type in negative 0.8 and click on the fraction button. It'll give you negative 4/5. I would do that personally because I don't want to mess up putting in the decimal if it's like a messy decimal, because College Board does not really make that clear. So, okay, great. 10. This is a system. We're going to solve this using Desmos, but to do it by hand, I don't know. Probably the easiest way is to get x by itself and substitute. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get this guy by itself. And to do that, I'm going to divide both sides by -2. So I get x equals -2y minus 3. Hopefully that's right. I'm going to put a big box around that. And now we're going to plug that in to the other equation. So we get 2 times 2y plus 3. Why don't I just distribute that while I'm at it? So 4y plus 6 equals 3 times -2y minus 3 minus 5. So everything is the same, except I distribute on the left side, and we replace x with -2y minus 3, which is fine because it's equal to that. Okay, now I'm going to distribute 4y plus 6 equals -6y. 3 times -3 is -9. -9 minus 5, that should be -14. And why don't I get the variable to the left side? So we're going to add 6y to both sides. That gives us 10y. And then we're going to subtract 6 from both sides. That gives us -20. So y equals, divided by 10, we should get -2. And I don't even need to check the x-coordinate, though you could by plugging it in up here into the one that you got the letter by itself for. That's why I put a big box around that. But it seems the only answer with a y-coordinate of -2 is B. And for sample question 10, that is correct. So you don't even need to go find the x-coordinate. We kind of lucked out by just our problem-solving strategy. Okay, so of course, Desmos would save a lot of time on this one. So we're going to do -2x equals 4y plus 6. And then we're going to do 2y plus 3 equals 3x minus 5. Just going to zoom in where they intersect. And I'm going to click on it. And it says 1, -2, which is answer choice B. So we did a good job. All right, let's get rid of this. Let's come back over here. Okay, this is asking me how many solutions. I made an Ottocento video on this. I think it's number 6. So definitely check that out, Ottocento number 6. When it's in standard form, we just kind of write down all the coefficients and set up a proportion. Again, I'm just going to kind of assume you watched that video if you've gotten to this point. So 2 over 1, 6 over 3, and 3 over 2. Okay, so simplify. So now that's 2, 2, and 3 over 2. These guys are equal, but these guys are not equal. So this looks an awful lot like A over D equals B over E, which is not equal to C over F, which tells us they have the same slope, but different y-intercept, which tells us they're parallel, which tells us they have no solution. I go over all this in the video, kind of glossing over it. So there are 0 solutions, which is answer choice A. And let's see, 11 is A. Good. Okay, so also, I made a Desmos video on this when, oh, guys, I made a tiny mistake. Always make sure that before you do this, you put it in standard form. So let me come back over here real quick. So see, it's not in standard form. So 6x plus 2y, you got to put it in that correct order. I mean, I suppose it doesn't matter too much, but I would do that first. So it's not going to really change anything, I don't think, but be consistent. Always put it in standard form first. So really it would be 6 over 3, 2 over 1, and then 3 over 2, and you still get the same thing. Okay, anyway, regardless, on the actual test, I wouldn't even put any of that up to chance. I mean, you should know this concept, but let's just type this in, y plus 3x equals 2. And if I zoom in, it certainly looks like they are parallel, which means they have no solution. So we're good. I also didn't point this out earlier. I should have. This is a linear system. There's no way it could have two solutions. It has to have 0, 1, or infinitely many. So right away, you can cross off C. You don't even need to consider that. Okay, great. Okay, so this is actually a lot more like what you'd probably see on the test. So it says it has infinitely many solutions, and it's in standard form. So if you watch my Rocento video, I talk about how this tells you that A over D equals B over E, which is equal to C over F. So we can circle all the coefficients. You can just pretend S and T are like X and Y. So we get 3 over negative 15 equals negative 2 over positive B equals A over negative 7. And why don't, for the sake of it, I don't want to set it equal to, because I don't know what B is. I want to just find A. So why don't, since they're all equal, why don't I just set these two equal? So 3 over negative 15 equals A over negative 7. And now we're going to cross multiply. So negative 21 equals negative 15A. Divide both sides by negative 15, and we should get negative 21 divided by negative 15. So A is equal to 1.4, which is also 7/5. So either of those would have been acceptable. And great. Okay, so you can kind of fiddle around with the slider to get the answer without knowing anything, but I would kind of not do that. But what I would do is, if you have time, because this is kind of a hard question, check the answer before you move on. So, and I'm also going to change the S and T to X and Y. So 3x minus 2y equals A. And then minus 15x plus by equals negative 7. And we can add sliders for both these. And I suppose we'd have to find B as well. So A is 1.4. What would B be? Negative 2 times negative 5, 10. Great, so see how it perfectly replaces? Probably not that helpful because we would have had to find B, but always a good idea if you have time to check your answer before you move on. Great. Okay, let's come back over here. And yeah, the line being on top of it, that means it has infinitely many solutions. I go over that in the video. Okay, perpendicular. Okay, so we want to find the slope. So I don't know, why don't I just pick two points that go through a grid marker? Pay very close attention to how much a grid marker is worth. It seems that each one is worth 1, so I don't need to worry about that. Okay, so I'm going to go down and then over. So the slope is, you guys might want to use the slope formula because you can't draw on the test. So just kind of keep that in mind. I'm going to use rise over run though. So the rise, we went down 2. So I'm going to put negative 2. And the run, we went to the right 1. So that's positive 1. So that gives us negative 2 divided by 1, which is negative 2. So the slope is negative 2. The perpendicular slope is the opposite reciprocal. So flip it and change the sign. So it's negative, so I'm going to make it positive. And I'm going to flip it so that instead of 2 over 1, it's 1/2. So that's the slope of the perpendicular line, and it seems the only one with a perpendicular slope, 1/2, is C. So I believe C has to be the answer. I don't even need to check anything else, just the slope. And that's it. So if it tells you it's parallel, they got the same slope. And if they tell you it's perpendicular, the slopes are opposite reciprocals. So opposite means change the sign, and reciprocal means flip it. So switch the numerator and the denominator. So that's what they're testing you on here. Really important. You can also, I don't know, find the equation in that line and then graph them, but that's not going to be any faster. Great, looks good. Okay, let's do sample question 14. Okay, so right away, I'm just going to rewrite this to make it more clear for everyone. So V equals 65t plus 3450. And we're comparing that to y equals mx plus b. And you can see the question is asking us about 65. So 65 is the slope. Or m. So I'm gonna like kind of normally when you look for slope in an interpretation, you're gonna see words like each, for each, increase, decrease, like words that sound like a rate. So just kind of be on the lookout for that. If an answer choice doesn't have any words that sound like a slope, it's probably wrong. So right away, this one, it says the estimated number of registered voters. Okay, so that's a V, so that's a Y value at the beginning of the registration drive. Okay, doesn't say anything about a rate. The estimated number of registered voters. Okay, so that's a Y value, not a slope. And it says at the end of the registration drive. Okay, so it doesn't mention anything that sounds like a rate. The total estimated number of voters registered during the drive. I also don't see anything that sounds like a rate in there either. Let's look at this one. Okay, it says each day during the drive. So like each, per, for each additional, increase, decrease. These are all words you'll see that are kind of talking about a slope. I think the key word here is each day. It's really the only answer choice that has that could possibly be the slope. So I'm pretty sure it's D. Let's kind of try to break this down and talk about maybe what the other answer choices are talking about. I think the one that says at the beginning of the registration drive, that's talking about the y-intercept, which is the 3450. So that is wrong. The estimated number of registration voters at the end of the registration drive. Okay, so we'd really need more information to figure that out. They don't tell us how many days the drive is run. But like, let's say it's run, I don't know, for like B days or something, then it would be V, or like, let's just say it's run for like 30 days, I don't know, then it would be, or 28 days, it would be V of 28. So you would plug in 28 for X. Again, not what they're asking you for. And the total estimated number of voters registered during the drive. Okay, so that would probably be just 28 if it were 28 days. I'm just spitballing here. We wouldn't count the ones that were already present at the beginning. So that would be like, let's say 65 times 28. Again, also not what they're asking you for. Just want to point out that A is the y-intercept. So even though this is wrong, that could totally be the correct answer for another question if they were asking you about the y-intercept. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. So when you're talking about y-intercept, usually you want to look at words like initial, beginning. And when you're talking about slope, you want to look for words like each, for each, increase, decrease. The slope is the change in y when x goes up by 1. So it's the number of voters, the change in y, v, when t goes up by 1. So t going up by 1, it's 1 day, so each day. Hopefully that helps. Let's take a short break and we'll come back with the drills. All right, let's get started with drill 1. So let's see, it says here that the customer had 3 small boxes shipped. It says that A is the small boxes, so that basically just tells us that A is 3. So we're going to do 3 plus 4b equals 25. So that's 9 plus 4b equals 25. Subtract 9 from both sides. Get 4b equals 16. Divide both sides by 4, and I get b equals 4. So the answer to drill 1 is B. Great. Okay, no solution. Okay, so this is no solution in slope-intercept form, which I go over in the video I was talking about before, 806. So no solution tells us they have the same slope and different y-intercept. So I'm going to try to write this out to make this more clear. Mx plus b, mx plus b. So do you guys see the slope on the right side? The slopes have to be the same. So the slope on the right side is 0, and the slope on the left side is a. So that means a must equal 0. That's it. We don't even need the different y-intercept part, though they are different. The y-intercept on this side is 0, and the y-intercept on this side is 5. So the answer should be A, I believe, 0. Now, I'd definitely check before you move on. So let's go to Desmos here. So I'm going to break it up into a system. So y equals ax, and y equals 5. So y equals left-hand side, y equals right-hand side. Now I'm going to make a 0. And you see they are parallel, they're never going to touch. You could now guess and check the other answer choices. So 1, they cross, right? 5, they cross. And 10, they cross. So all those other ones have one solution. We want the one with no solution, which is A. So yeah, we could have figured that out using guess and check pretty easily if you weren't sure what to do. Great, let's keep going. Okay, so mean is sum divided by n. So we're going to do 85 plus 78 plus 98 plus whatever he gets on the 4th exam, which they call G, divided by the total number of exams, which is 4. And it says he wants to get at least a 90. So remember we said it's got to be, at least means greater than or equal to. So we're going to put greater than or equal to 90, and I don't think there's anything else we need to do. I think this is just answer choice C. Maybe I'm missing something. Let me check. No, the answer is C. That's it. So yeah, they're basically just testing you on the mean formula. So add up all the data points and divide by n, the sample size, which in this case was 4 because there was 4 exams. They even tell you that too, all 4 exams. Great, let's keep going. Okay, so this is an equation. I'm going to first distribute. Let me just rewrite it so you guys can see. Okay, so we're going to distribute, and we'll get 9x plus 15 equals 2x minus 8. I'm going to subtract 2x from both sides. I get 7x. Subtract 15 from both sides gives me negative 23. Divide both sides by 7, and we get x equals negative 23 over 7. And that should be answer choice A, which is right. And you could just type this equation in and solve it. You might have a hard time converting sevenths from a decimal to a fraction, but you have the answer choices for this one, so you can't just guess and check. So yeah, you also could use Desmos to solve this, but you really need to know how to do this algebra. So again, remember the strategy for these types of linear equations: get all the x's to one side and get all the numbers to the other side. Let me put a box around this too. Great. Okay. On Tuesday, Zhao has a goal to walk at least 1,500 more steps than he did on Monday. Okay, so 11,400 plus 1,500. What is that? I don't know. 12,900? I guess that's it. Yeah. So if you were going to be like really particular, just keep in mind it does say least number of steps. So like this really is like an inequality. X is the number of steps he can walk on Tuesday. At least he wants to walk at least 1,500 more steps, which is 12,900. So the lowest number of steps, because we're including 12,900, is 12,900. Great. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, this is a system. We'll do it by hand first, but very first thing is we want to, when you see an equation with just one letter in it, you got to solve that equation. That should be the first thing you should do. So the bottom one only has y. So we're going to divide both sides by 3, and we get y equals 3. Now we're going to substitute that into the other equation. So we get x minus 3 times 3 equals 7. X minus 9 equals 7. Add 9 to both sides, and we get x equals 16, which hopefully is the answer. Drill 6C. Good. And just keep in mind, guys, like any system on the actual test, might be best to just plot it. So it says x is 16 and y is 3. Good. Well, let's go back over here. Okay, which following is the best interpretation of the value of x in this context? Okay, so once again, I'm just going to put 1.2. This is slope-intercept form. And I'm kind of blocking the way here. Yeah, that's better. Okay, good. So do you guys kind of see, like, P is the y, 1.2 is the slope, 5 is the y-intercept, and x is the x, the independent variable, right? So it says that y is the total monthly price in dollars for using an online gaming service. And it says the total monthly price consists of a flat monthly fee. Okay, so monthly fee. It's kind of like a daily fee or an hourly fee. That kind of sounds like the slope. I think this is talking about the 1.2. And wait, and a charge for each game played during a month. Okay, so I was wrong. Flat monthly fee, this word flat, that usually tells us that that's an initial value of the y-intercept. So this is talking about the 5. And then it says a charge for each game played during a month. That is talking about the 1.2. So this is the 5, and this is the 1.2. It's talking about the slope. So if this guy is the dollars he's charged for each or per game, X, you'd have to multiply by the number of games he plays in order for these units to cancel and so that you're left with dollars. So I'm thinking X is the number of games they play in a given month. And that is right. That is answer choice A. Let's see if we can go over what these wrong answer choices come from. The charge in dollars for playing X games. I think that is, this is the X. This is 1.2 times X. Think about it, right? If you play 4 games, 1.2 times 4, that's the total charge. The flat monthly fee, we talked about, that's the 5. And then the number of months the gaming service was used, we don't know anything about that. They don't tell us. That we're just talking about the monthly price. We don't know how many months this person is doing this, so this is just question mark. So I guess what I'm trying to say is 1.2x and 5 are correct, but it's not what the question is asking you for. So if the question asked you for 1.2x, B might have been the answer. Or if the question is asking you to interpret 5, C might have been the answer. Again, another really important y-intercept word is flat fee. That often talks about, think about like a flat fee when you take a taxi. You pay probably like, however much money per mile, and then you pay a flat fee just for getting in. That's what that means. It just means like an initial fee. So this person pays $5 at the beginning of every month and then 1.2 for every game they play. Great. Okay, sounds good. And you see this word too, each. We're talking about that for each. That's usually talking about a slope. All right, enough about that. Let's move on. Okay, with Desmos, kind of makes this one trivial. I guess you can just graph all of them. I don't know. How about I put them in slope-intercept form? So I'm going to subtract x from both sides, and I get y equals negative x plus 4. And then for this one, I'm going to, how about add y to both sides, and then subtract 2 from both sides. So this one would be y equals x minus 2. Something like that. I noticed they have different slopes. One of them has a slope of -1, and one of them has a slope of 1. So they must have a solution. They must have one solution. Anything that looks like no solution or infinitely many, getting crossed off. This one has no solution, so C is wrong. Okay, A and B and D all seem plausible at a first glance. However, the line going down must have a y-intercept of 4. So that's this one. And then y equals x minus 2. That is going up, and it has a y-intercept of -2, which is this one. So it's looking like it's answer choice A. And that is correct. And again, I don't even know why this question's on here. You can just type both those in and look at it, and then look at Desmos and look at the answers and see that it's A. Great. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, 5 kilocalories. So T and let me just do this down here. T equals 5 kilocalories per minute. So 5 kilocalories per minute times m minutes. And then 10 kilocalories per minute times m minutes. Or how about I call it, I don't know, running. And then P for pedaling. I don't know. Okay, now it says running on the treadmill for 15 minutes. So the running is 50. So we're going to actually replace that with a 50. And then the pedaling, they use M. I don't know why they're using such wacky letters, but okay, so now let's just rewrite this to look more like the answer choice is 10M plus 5 times 50. I think that's 250. And let's look at that. That's right. Good. Okay, so I don't know, guys. Just a suggestion. Like a lot of times, it's really good to write the equation using letters that make sense to you, and then change it to match the ones in the problem later. Like if you go straight to the answer choices here, we're probably going to get confused. So try to come up with the equation yourself. So 5R is the calories from running, and 10P is the calories from pedaling. Then I put in the numbers and letters that they wanted me to put. Great. Okay, 10. We want to do f of 9 minus f of 1. So we can do this by hand first. So f of 9, we just replace x with 9. So 9 plus 7 over 4. That's 16 divided by 4, which is 4. F of 1 is 1 plus 7 over 4. That's 8 divided by 4, which is 2. So f of 9 minus f of 1 is equal to 4 minus 2, which should be 2. And I think that's answer choice B, which is right. So let's come over here and we'll just check. So f of x equals, I'm going to press the slash key, slash x plus 7. Let me be particular and write it exactly as they wrote it, even though it doesn't matter. You don't really need those parentheses. And now I'm going to do f of 9 minus f of 1. And it tells me it's 2. So on the actual test, I wouldn't have done all that work. Typing that in is much faster. Great. Let's come back over here. All right, which of the following is equation line out? Let's do this entirely by hand. So m equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. That's the slope formula. And why don't we call this guy x1, y1, and this guy x2, y2. So the slope is 10 minus 6 over 8 minus 2. So that's 4 over 6, which simplifies to 2/3. And I mean, I don't even need to go any further. The only one with a slope of 2/3 is A. So I guess I can just stop there. Why don't we go over how to do the rest of the equation? We already did point slope, so why don't we use the partial equation? So y equals mx plus b. Y equals 2/3 x plus b. Now, why don't we use the smaller point, 2, 6? I don't know, just for the sake of convenience. 6 equals 2/3 times 2 plus b. So 6 equals 4/3 plus b. Now I subtract 4/3 from both sides. 6 minus 4/3 is 14/3. So the equation is 2/3 x plus 14/3. Great. So that is A. That is right. Probably a great way to do this would be to just guess and check. So I'm just going to put in the answer and like confirm that we did it right. And you kind of see that it goes through both points, so it's definitely answer choice A. Another way you could do this if there weren't answer choices is you could make a table and you could type in the table. So 2, 6, oops, didn't mean to do that. 2, 6, and 8, 10. And you can do regression. I have a Desmos video on this. So y1 tilde mx1 plus b. That's like probably the most important, one of the most important regressions you should know. And it says that the slope is 0.66666, which is 2/3. And it says that the slope, the y-intercept is 4.666666666, which is 14/3. So you could have figured it out completely organically without the answer choices, but just typing in the equation is probably easier. What we did calculating the slope by hand was not a lot of work. You really need to know the slope formula for the test, so make sure you know it. Just trying to be thorough here. All right, let's come back over here. Okay, she ran and biked. Okay, so this sounds like T equals, I'll call that the total number of miles. No. So she's running at 5 miles per hour, so 5R, and biked B miles 10B. She ran and biked a total of 200 miles, okay? And now she biked for twice as many hours as she ran. Okay, I got to write down D equals RT, make sure I'm not doing this wrong. Okay, so T, remember T is D over R. Divide both sides by R. Okay, so she biked, the distance was B, and the rate, so really it's like she biked, so like time biking is 2 times T running. So we can write D over R. So B over, what was her rate for biking? 10 equals 2 times the time running. So distance running is R over the rate running, which is 5. Okay, wow. That was a pain. Once we get to this point, we're going to do it later. We can just type this into Desmos. Let's go over how to do it by hand, though. Probably the easiest thing to do is substitution. So I'm going to, how about I get, I don't know, what's going to be easier? It doesn't really matter too much. Why don't I get B by itself? So I'll multiply both sides by 10, and I get 20 over 5, which is 4. So I'll get B equals 4R. And why don't we put that into, but I'll put a big box around the thing with the letter by itself because I'm going to need that later. And I'm going to put that in to here. So 5R plus 10 4r equals 200. So that gives me 40r plus 5r, 45r equals 200. R equals 200 divided by 45, which is 40 over 9. And then 40 times 4. Let's see, I might have made a mistake. Yeah, I definitely made a mistake. So here, I thought I was doing RT for distance. This equation is really, the distance is R plus B. You don't need to multiply by anything. That's already the distance. Equals 200 miles. That should be a lot nicer. Okay, so now we can do R plus 4R equals 200. So 5R equals 200. So R equals 200 divided by 5, which is 40. And we can put that into our like blue box guy. B equals 4 times 40, which is 160. Very good. Okay, I just made a tiny error. See, I went too fast, guys. D equals RT. We don't have rate and time. They gave us the distance, so we can just use distance. Distance is R and for running, and then distance is B for biking. Okay, so right away, answer is D. And let's use Desmos, because that would have been way faster towards the end there. So x plus y equals 200. And this is really important. Don't mix up x and y. B is y, so y equals 4x. Great. So they intersect at x, which is the running for 40 miles, and then the biking B for 160 miles. And it's asking about biking. So we'd put 160. Much faster to solve that on Desmos. It saves you a couple steps. Great. Okay. Great. I like these questions. I'm probably going to make a video on this pretty soon. I call these slope proportions. So the slope is delta y, the change in y over change in x. In this problem, y is c, because that's where y is, right? And then x is just x. And they tell us the slope by looking at this equation, mx plus b, is 5/4. So I'm going to write 5/4. And then they tell us if the quantity of units produced, that's our x, I think, increases by 39. So this part is telling us that delta x, it increases. So it's, let me move this down. Delta x is positive 39. The change in x is positive 39. So that's going to go on the bottom because x is on the bottom. If they said it decreases by 39, we would put negative 39. Okay, what is the corresponding increase in total cost? So it wants to know delta C. So I know I'm using a lot of C's and X's. Why don't I call this C for change, not for cost? I don't know. All right, so let's look at this now. And we can cross multiply. So 5 times 39 is 195. And 4 times C is just 4C. Now we're going to divide both sides by 4. And we get C equals 48.75. You could also put the fraction form of that. Don't really feel a reason to do that. If it's terminating, you can just use the decimal. There's not really any reason not to. So the change is positive 48.75. So it increases by 48.75. Another way you could do this is you could plug in like x is 0 and then x is 39 and see what the difference is. I think it's way more reliable to do it this way though, because what if the answer is like 5/7? Then then kind of guessing and checking and using decimals isn't really going to work. So I highly recommend you know how to set up this proportion. They seem to really like this for the digital SAT for some reason. Won't be surprised if this comes up again. Great. We'll go over that more in another video. Okay, great. This is textbook, what we did in the Ottocento linear systems, how many solutions video. So no solution tells us that A over D equals B over E is not equal to C over F. So just kind of circle all the constants, kind of like I was doing before. K over 4 equals -3 over -5 is not equal to 4 over 7. And we don't really care about what it's not equal to because we're trying to solve for K. So cross multiply -5K equals -12. Divide both sides by -5 and we get K equals positive 12/5, which is answer choice A for 14. And because this is a multiple choice, Desmos would have been really good for this one. And also, you know, just for the sake of it, even if it's a student-produced response, check your answer. So let's come over here. Kx minus 3y equals 4. And 4x minus 5y equals 7. And now we're going to do k equals 12/5. And if I zoom in, I see that that has no solution. Let's try some of the other answer choices. 16 over 7. Well, it's kind of hard to tell, but that seems to cross. Seems to cross there. Let's try -16 over 7. Okay, that definitely crosses. C is definitely wrong. And let's try -12 over 5. Okay, that also definitely crosses. Okay, so even if you couldn't tell because of the window, we probably could have crossed these two off right away just by guessing and checking. And then A and B, you just got to zoom in a little. I highly recommend you bring a mouse. It makes zooming in with the scroll wheel is just a million times easier than using a trackpad. Maybe it's because I'm old, but, you know. Anyway, good. So if you're still confused on this, definitely check out the Ottocento 6 video. I go over everything in that. Okay, so it gives us, it tells us it's linear, so we don't need to figure that out. And they want us to put it in standard form. We could find the slope-intercept and then manipulate it. But you know what, guys? This video is getting kind of long. If you want to use the slope formula and do it by hand, you can. I'm going to try regression. So let's put all this in a table. So -10, 66, -5, 45, 5, 3. We'll see if this works. If it doesn't work, you know, we can just figure it out. Okay, so ax plus 5y equals c. They gave us the equation they want, right? So let's write ax1. This doesn't always work, but it'll often work, especially for lines. Plus 5y1. Instead of equals, we put tilde. And then capital C. Okay, wow. It says A is 21 and C is 120. Man, that was super, super helpful. Okay, so the answer is 120. That's right. Let's put those into the equation. Let's actually graph it without the let's graph it. So ax, so 21. You guys can't see this. Let me put this up here. There we go. So 21x plus 5y, and then c is 120. So 120. Okay, boom. Looks like those green dots are my 4 points, and it goes perfectly through all those points. And it's asking us what C is. C is the guy at the end, 120. So if you got it in slope-intercept form, I suppose you could do some algebra, like 2 steps of algebra to put it into standard form, but this was probably easier. Let me do 16. We could come back and do it. I'll see how I feel. Okay, so this one, it wants us to find 3 comma d, but if you look at x is 3, you see it doesn't go through a grid marker, so we don't know what the y value is. So that means we need to find the equation of the line. We could actually use what we just did using the regression, but we could do that too. But okay, so they give us 2 points. 7, 0, and 0, negative 11. We could use we could find the slope, and they gave us the y-intercept. We could also use 2-intercept form. Not a lot of people know that though, so why don't we not do that? Why don't I just find the slope? So y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So negative 11 minus 0 over 0 minus 7. So that's 11 over 7. So the equation of this line is y equals 11 over 7x. And the y-intercept is just negative 11, so minus 11. We can now go and either graph it, or we can just plug in x is 3. So I'll just plug in x is 3. So d equals 11 over 7 times 3 minus 11. Let's see what that gives us. Should get negative 44 over 7. And that is the answer. You can also put that using decimals, but I feel like a lot of people would mess that up. There's no reason to not put a fraction because Desmos will do it for you. So I would just use the fraction. So let's come to Desmos. I mean, if you couldn't even figure that equation, we could just make a table. And we could just type in the 2 points. So 7, 0, 0, negative 11. And you only need 2 points to define a line. So y1 mx1 plus b. And I could now on a separate line type in, like, you could use function notation, or you could just type in like x equals 3 and click on it. And you could do negative 6.286, but just, you know, it's like it's kind of hard to tell. Like, that is an acceptable answer for this one, but like for another one, you might not get enough digits. So, and it's kind of hard to tell what the repeating pattern is for a 7th. So it's like doing this one by hand might have been better. Just this one in particular, because the fraction didn't really work out that nicely. Great. All right, why don't I go back, do the other one by hand? I think that was the last one. Okay, so the slope is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. I'm going to use these 2 points here. I don't know, it doesn't matter. So negative 18 minus 3 over 10 minus 5. And we get a slope of negative 21 over 5, which is negative 21 fifths. We've been using the partial equation a lot, so why don't I do that? Y equals negative 21 fifth x. I mean, we use point slope. I don't know, just to mix things up, I'll use the partial equation. Okay, now I'm going to use this point, 5 comma 3. So 3 equals negative 21 fifths times 5 plus b. So we get 3 equals negative 21. So b equals 24, I hope. I think that's right. Great. Okay, so the equation is negative 21/5 x plus 24. We add 21/5 x to both sides, and we get 21/5 x plus y equals 24. And now, for standard form, we need to clear the denominators. So you can also kind of tell in the problem there's like a 5 there. So we're going to multiply by 5 to get rid of that 21/5. And we get 21x plus 5y equals, I don't know what 24 times 5 is, 120, which is exactly what we got before. I don't know if that was the fastest way to do it by hand, but it's like doing it by hand wasn't the fastest way anyway. So you guys see what I mean when I did the regression video. I talked a lot about how this isn't really going to be that much of a game changer, but it's very situationally helpful, and this is a great problem where it's super situationally helpful. Like if you knew how to type in a table and regress, you'd done this problem in less than 20 seconds. Great. Okay, I think that was the last question. Okay, that completes the lesson. Please like and subscribe for more digital SAT math content. If you're interested in my tutoring services, the link to my website will be in the description. I tutor SAT math and all math subjects from about 7th grade to AP/early college level. Thanks for stopping by, and good luck studying.